I am Halivni, along with Jeffrey Reches. We are sitting with Noah Prywes in Rockville, Maryland. It is March 26, 2019. Thank you very much. Why don't you start telling me a little bit about your family's background, where they came from, what you know.
Do you prefer English or Hebrew? I can do either.
I'll ask the questions in English. You could talk in either one, whatever you're more comfortable with.
What do you want? No, let's keep one language.
Most of the interviews that we have are in Hebrew. For me, to ask the questions, it's easier in English, but if Hebrew is perfect.
What do you want to do today? Hebrew or English?
What's easier for you? What do you feel more comfortable talking about these things in?
I'm comfortable, I hope.
Okay.
For neither.
So let's do it in English. If
Okay.
we see if we decide to switch, we can switch.
Okay. All right, so you go ahead.
Go ahead. So tell me about your...
Well, you see, I really come from my father and my mother. So first thing, my mother is from the Chabad line. Her grandfather was a Rebbe in Bobruisk, which is a Kopst line of Chabad. I don't know if you're familiar with the line of Chabad. After the Tzemach Tzedek, they split into 3 places, and so one of them was my grandfather, also called Shmariah Noach, like me. So that's where my mother comes. Her father was supposed to be eventually inherit his father, but he married a young woman from Berdichev that was a Margolis. The Berdichev house apparently had a lot of money. He was a businessman, was cutting the wood around and shipping it to customers in Europe. So it was such a marriage between what you call Reches, okay, the Chabad line, and he was a Talmid Chacham and so on. And the money, he was a very well-to-do people. So my mother became familiar both with business and with religion. Okay, religious teaching and business teaching, and she helped her father in that business as well.
What was your mother's name?
My mother's name was Mutia.
And where was she born and when?
She was around the beginning of the century, around 1900. Okay, and so she was what is called the Rebbe's Enikel, you know, sort of, I don't know if you recognize this type, a tragedy in her life. Her father was both a respectable, well-to-do, and he apparently went by train and went, as a matter of fact, went to for bar mitzvah in Berdichev, and a couple of Ukrainian officers thought it was offensive that a Jew will use the train, so they shot him and killed him just before a little station in the Petrovsk. So that effect, that was in around 1700. No, that was in about the 1917. So at the time of the revolution. So the whole family apparently smuggled them border and moved to, not the whole family, but most of the family, both from her mother's side, moved to, and whatever was left from their own side, moved to Poland. So that's a story, I think, so that's a story of my mother family, okay? I think it's you know, the Chabad line is well known, so. But my father was the grandson of a very rich family. There was a man there, it's very interesting, that he was an entrepreneur. They were building the trains in Russia, and they needed rails for the trains. And you needed to have a workshop that would make the rails to fit the design. So he, you know, they lived in apartment houses. So in the apartment house, he built up a shop and used some of his fellow Stibel members, something like this, to do the labor, and apparently made a great deal of money. And his name was Prywes, so he was a grandson of Yeshayahu. Whether my father got much money, I doubt it. Okay, so that's the story of my father and my mother. They met.
Your father's name was?
My Chaim Yehuda Leib.
Chaim Yehuda Leib?
Yeah.
And when was he born?
When he was born also about 1900. So that's a story of the both sides. Both in Warsaw, the family was very well known. He was the chairman of a board of the community board, supported an orphan place for the orphans. If you go to the cemetery in Warsaw, they have a list of important people who buried there. So you see his name is on the list. Okay, so that's a story of where my parents come from.
Well, so where did they meet?
They met with, was it a shidduch or they met some other, I don't know. But they met in Warsaw. She escaped the border. They got married in 1921. She escaped the border. My grandfather was killed, was 1917. They kept it a secret from her. They didn't want her to know. So it was 1919 before she decided to leave Bobruisk and go over to Warsaw, smuggle the border. I know that she smuggled the border. And also her grandfather was very well-to-do. He was also, you know, from Reches. And he apparently had money outside Russia. And also he had all the customers. Apparently the customer ties are very important. So my uncles, the brothers of my mother, got into the lumber business as well. So that side of the family was well-to-do in Warsaw. And my father's side, the family apparently had, the grandfather had a fabulous fortune. It's very interesting. We see now people starting a business from nothing and growing to huge dimensions. That's what he did. He was reputed to have 500 million ruble when he died. So that's a story of where my families come from.
Now they get married in 1921
1920 in Warsaw, yeah.
Okay, and then when do they have children? Who's the oldest?
Okay, so the oldest one is My brother was killed. I'll show you something about it.
Okay.
I was number 2.
What was your brother's name?
Menachem Mendel.
Menachem Mendel,
Yeah.
named as a
Named after her father.
Named after her father.
Yeah, the one who was killed by the Ukrainians. Okay.
And he's born in 1920.
I'm sorry.
What year was he born?
He was born in 1922.
Okay.
I was born 3 years later in 1925. And my younger brother, Ishayahu, was born 3 years later, which was 1928.
And you were all born in Warsaw?
We were all born in Warsaw, yeah. And my father had the business of supplying heating oil to the population. There are all kind of, he had a lot of vehicle. He had a business with his brother. So that was important because I think that my mother was an idealist. She wanted to get away from the anti-Semite all around, wherever it was, including in Poland. So was a great deal of opposition to them moving to, that's interesting, moving Palestine. And they were all of Ger Chassidim. So I had to get permission from the Ger Rebbe. And the Ger Rebbe at that time was also building up a Ger community in Palestine. So he approved of him, of the family moving.
Who was a Ger Chassid? Your father?
My father was a Ger Chassid, yeah, I'm sorry I didn't say it. The whole family, the whole Prywes family was Ger Chassid. Those who stayed religious, okay. It was a big community, and apparently money corrupts. Okay, so.
And did you grow up going to like a cheder? Did you go to?
No, I don't know. They always sent me to, and my other kid, the other kid into Mizrahi schools. If you know the environment in Israel at that time, there were yeshivas, but there were also Mizrahi schools, which were supposed to be more liberal. So they sent us to the more liberal schools. Okay, so then in 1932, my father went to Palestine to investigate what he could do. He had to give up his business in Warsaw, which he had together with his brother. So he had to decide what to do. And then in 1933, he took the whole family and moved to Tel Aviv.
Do you remember Warsaw?
I have been in Warsaw ever since, several times, out of curiosity.
But you remember it as a kid?
I'm saying, I remember something as a kid. I remember we had a sukkah in the courtyard of the apartment house. I remember that. Sukkah with a roof that you could lift it up and down, because at that time, that was winter, Sukkot.
Were there other people that were also thinking about moving to Palestine at that time? Was that unusual? Any other families?
No, there were other people. As a matter of fact, when we came to Palestine, we first stayed with an aunt who was already there. And then we moved to an apartment. Now, remember, the apartment was 3 rooms, and there were balconies on both sides. And always, weather was nice, so there were always people sleeping in the balconies. Families coming, staying with us for a while, and then my father belonged to the Ger Shibel. So I don't know if I'm answering your question or not.
Would you consider, was your family Zionistic, or was it more trying to get away from Poland, or where did your family see itself in terms of affiliation or?
My family was religious. As a matter of fact, my mother was in Palestine in 1913, because here I have this book. Could you hand me that book? I wanted.
Okay.
Well, anyhow, Mom, when going back into history, when the Baal Shem Tov died, he had two students, and they decided that one was going to settle in Palestine, and the other one was going to start at a kollel, will give him money. So in time, there were 4 communities, Chabad communities in Hebron, in Jerusalem, in Tveria, and in Tzfat. Okay, so apparently they started arguing about money, and my grandfather and members of the other 3 branches of Chabad came in there and unified the kollel exists today, so that they had how to divide the money. So she used to tell us about going to the Chabad synagogue, the Tzemach synagogue in the old city in Jerusalem. I remember that from youth.
How long was she in Palestine for?
At that time, probably 6 months or something like this, until they settled. The whole thing is described in this book.
But then your mother went back to.
That was before. That was before she went to Poland, 1913. Her father was still alive.
Uh-huh.
Father was killed 1917. So we were, the difficulty of getting out of Warsaw, they must have been very insistent against all advice, because they were well-to-do and they had to give it all up and go to. But my mother, I think, was the ideologue.
Were they connected to any of the Zionist movements in Poland, or they went to be part of the Gera community in?
They went to be part of the Gera community.
Okay. The
first thing they knew is where was the Stiebel, the Gera Stiebel.
Right. So you come to Palestine. You are.
I come to Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is all sand.
And how old are you? You're 7, 8?
Sand.
Yeah. How old were you?
I was 7.
7. Okay.
I had to go over the sand hills to get to school. School was a kind of wooden building, temporary building. It was a beautiful school now. It's a beautiful school. They built a big building.
What kind of school was it?
It was a Mizrahi school. Mizrahi had their own chain of schools.
And your brothers also went to the school?
No. The older one went to school a little bit further, also Mizrahi school. There was a Tachkemoni school. And the youngest one, I guess my parents sent him to Talmud Torah. They wanted something more religious. My younger brother. The thing I also remember that in 1934, the Ger Rebbe came for a visit in Jerusalem, and we moved everything to Jerusalem for about a month to be close to the Ger Rebbe. I don't know, so Then my father built an apartment house as an investment. And he also started a grocery wholesale business and import.
In Tel Aviv?
In Tel Aviv, yeah. It was really a very central thing in Jaffa Road, the very center of the thing. And,
okay, so now you're growing up, you're going to the Tachkamoni school in
Tel Aviv.
Your father is building a grocery store and
he's building an apartment house first and then establishing a grocery business. But my mother spoke a lot of languages, so they had very good way of communicating with importers.
And what's going on now in the world? Do you still have family that's left in Poland?
In Poland, a huge family in Poland.
Okay, and things are now 33, Hitler comes to power in Germany.
That's right. Hitler came to power when we were on a boat from Prywes to Jaffa. Then, by the way, we used the port in Jaffa. Everybody used the port in Jaffa. That was the only real business port. And they have the people in the port. They had big boats. They would go up to the ship that was parked outside, way outside, and pick up the passengers, carry them into the boat. that was a way of coming, of getting off in Jaffa.
Now, in Palestine, not that much later after you got there are riots that are starting, right?
That's right. In the first place, we belonged to the religious scouts. There was a scout organization. When my brother was there, was a madrich, a guide. I tagged after him. You know, the idea is that the older brother has to take care of the younger brother. So I remember that. That went on until about 1939, 38, 39. And at that time, my parents moved my brother to the teacher seminary, Mizrahi teacher seminary in Jerusalem. And all this time there was all, you said, there were riots and all kinds of other things going on, and we were all in Haganah or in whatever was an organization. So, I don't know, so we were all kind of semi-trained military.
Now, in the area that you lived in Tel Aviv,
yes.
Were there other Ger Hasidim there?
Yeah, there was a shibboleth there.
Now, was it common for people from the Ger community to go to, you said Tzofim, that was the...
No, I think that we were more on the liberal side of the house. And I told you, with my younger brother, they were not satisfied with the education that I got on my brother, and so they sent him to a Talmud Torah. He did not go to a public school, really.
Okay, now 1939.
1939. Okay, you know, very shortly after that, my brother was killed in 1940.
So before that, you still have family in Poland. Now in 1939.
Yeah, there's a family in Poland. My grandfather died. My father went just before he became sick, He was there when my grandfather died. So what? So it was a big family. After the war, about, I think that I still got like 5 cousins that survived. The family must have had hundreds of people, the immediate family there.
Are they considering, are any of them trying to come to Palestine? Are they considering, are they?
Well, I had one uncle who did come to Palestine just before the war started. But no, they weren't. They were very well off. We were sort of maybe some crazies who went to live in Asia. But they did come for visits.
They would visit.
They're visiting. They're coming. Yeah.
And then go back to Poland.
Hmm?
They would come to visit and then go back to Poland.
That's right. Coming as tourists. So things were okay for those years up to 39. Then, as I told you, in 1939, my parents sent my brother to Jerusalem, to the Mizrahi school. And I'm doing something. I want to show you something, or that's not a good...
What do you want to show me?
I have a plaque that I'm putting up to in his memory.
You'll show me afterwards. I'll take a picture of that afterwards. Okay, so he's in Jerusalem now.
He's in Jerusalem now, and there is, in 1940, there is a strike of the Jewish population in protest against the White House, of the White Book of the government. They came out with the
White Paper.
The White Paper, yeah. Came out with a white paper that says that Jews cannot buy land and cut down the number of people who are allowed into the country. By that time, apparently, he was well established in Jerusalem. He was in the Haganah by that time. He was by that time 17 years old. So they sent him to that movie. The Jewish agency asked all the entertainment places to close down. So he went there and they kept the movie going on, and he went apparently on the stage telling the people who were attending the movie to leave. They called the British police, and the British police beat him up and killed him. Took 3 days for him to die. And there was a curfew in the country, so I was not there until the 3rd day, until the funeral practically. I came just before the funeral. So that certainly affected my mother. And I don't know, that's all what I can tell you, that it was like an end of a period. What they did to me, I guess I was hot-headed or something like this. And I joined the Palmach when I was 16. So figure out I was 16 in, I was born in 1925 to 1941, 42. I belonged to Pluga Dalet. That's what I want. I remember that the guy who was in charge of who was the officer of the Plug guy, was a tall guy, red-headed, okay? And what we did was we trained a week and we worked in one of the kibbutzim every week. I was most of the time in Tel Yosef, then moved to Givat HaShosha. And for 1 week we would live up in the mountains, the Gilboa Mountains, and train. Okay. After about a year, I asked to be relieved to take the matriculation examination and go to the Technion. And in order to go to the Technion, I had to live in Haifa. I also joined them. They had a guard, a sea guard, what do you call them, that protected the guns on the Haifa was then a port. So I went there and I also started studying at the Technion.
What were you studying?
Studying electrical engineering.
Okay. Well,
I started at 45.
Wait, before we get to that. So, when your brother is killed, was he part of the Haganah or anything?
Yes. He was sent to do that. He didn't go there. He was.
Can you hear the TV in the background or no?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
We were all members of Haganah. I was in the Palmach member of Haganah. He was in Jerusalem. And my parents had to give him a guide. One of the teachers who was also a rabbi and a poet, Yoshua Bachar, was a very, somebody the young person can follow. I don't know what else to tell you. I was going.
Okay, so then you're in the Palmach now. You
Yeah.
joined the Palmach.
Yes.
And did you have any operations that you were involved in those years?
No. I'm saying it was all training.
All training.
Yeah.
Okay, and then
That when I joined, it was right out of in Syria. The British took over Syria. It was Germans had more in Syria and they were driven out. And that's where the Palmach participated. So that was why I was interested in joining the Palmach. But that war was over.
all right, now during World War II,
Yes. I'm still talking to World War II.
some people joined up to fight with the British.
Yeah, but that was later already.
That was later.
Yeah. No, I didn't.
And your family that was in Poland,
Yes.
were you still in any contact with anyone? Everybody was taken?
No, they were all put into one of the concentration camp and killed. So, and there are a couple of cousins who somehow managed to be in some of the camps and survived the war. One of the cousins was a doctor, Moshe Prywes. He eventually became the president of Beersheba University. So he was one of the cousins who managed to somehow survive the concentration camp and came to Palestine after the war.
You moved to Haifa, you start in the Technion,
Yes,
1945.
yes.
Okay, and are you still somewhat involved in the Palmach at that
Yes,
time?
yes, I'm in the Palmach unit, yeah.
Okay.
We did guard duties. You know, Haifa was half Arab. And I was involved in one operation where there was a sort of trying to paid them back while they were attacking some Jewish places. But otherwise, I was on the border between the Jewish and the Arab areas.
Did you know Amos Chorev?
I know who he is. I didn't know it.
You don't know. You didn't
I
know
don't
from school?
remember anymore. Somehow,
Okay. You're studying, and then
he was way after that. He was the Technion. He was the president of the Technion.
but I thought he was a student at the Technion also. You don't remember him as a
I
student?
don't remember.
Okay.
This I don't know.
All right. So then, now, the war ends.
Yes.
Um,
Which war? I'm talking about the beginning of the 48 war.
well, I'm talking about the end of World War II now.
Yes.
Okay, so World War II is over, and now.
I'm still going to the Technion.
And is your family starts to try and find if relatives survived from the.
They find that nobody survived.
Okay, and then.
I mean, the few I'm telling you, trying to connect them. There would be. I still remember one of them, a cousin, coming into my father's store and saying, "Vetter, ich bin du." Even now I feel very remembering that. So that was a kind of news that we got. I don't know, maybe my parents wouldn't tell me, but I remember just the three cousins.
How long do you continue at the Technion? How long do you study there?
Well, I really studied until 1950. What has happened is I was in the fourth year. I was in the fourth year in 1948. So if everybody was left, like in November, was recruited into the army.
It was November 1947 or 48.
47.
47.
Yeah, 47. Everybody was taken out.
So Chavtet ben November.
Hmm?
What do you remember about Chavtet ben November?
November, we were allowed to stay until March 48. I think so, because we were the most advanced year, the fourth year we were going to graduate. So we were like 2 or 3 months later than everybody else. I was. And and then I went to work for, I don't know, kind of a mixed situation for really an industrial unit. Bought a boat for the Navy, built an automatic boat for the Navy. They were building a boat that they were going to guide by radio and aim it at the Egyptian ships. But in the end, instead of that, they had a human being just guide the boat. They did sink one of the Egyptian boats. Then I was moved into some army operation of building the instrument to aim the motors. You know, you could set it up for the distance, for the height, for all kind of other things. And then in the middle of 1950, I was released. You know, my two years service in the army was over. So then I was very restless. I didn't know what to do.
But had you finished your degree already?
I finished my degree at the Technion. I went back to the Technion for 6 months in what was it,
In 1950 you went back?
yeah, no,
To-
but
to-
then
to
50, there
finish
was
up.
that's right. And then I had to go back to the army to complete the 2 years. So they released me from the army for 6 months to do went back into the army. Have to look at the dates carefully. And then I finished my 2 years. Yeah, I think the law then was 2 years. You had to serve 2 years. So I did, and then I temporarily got a job. I think something, they were building tanks, but that was a civilian job, and started writing to universities. That was one where I wanted to travel, I wanted to get out. I was very, very impatient by then. And I was admitted to Carnegie Tech, I don't know if you know American universities.
Which one?
Carnegie Institute of Technology
In
in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, yeah.
Yes,
So that's where you,
that's where I met my wife. I was there for 1 year.
hold on one second. All right, so now you applied to schools
Applied to schools, admitted to Carnegie Tech
in Pittsburgh.
in Pittsburgh.
So you traveled to Pittsburgh in 1950.
1950, end of into the 1951 school year.
And you applied, and that's to do a program, a graduate program in,
I did a master's degree in computer in electrical engineering, yeah. And I did well, and I didn't like it. Okay. So was a funny thing. Getting into school has to do with letters of reference. And I had a letter of reference from the Technion, from my professor in electrical engineering. And somehow, it's really a joke how the whole life tells that if you got 100 he had a list of people, he had letters according to the grade. And in that one exam I got 100. So he gave me the best letter so I could get into any school. And I became interested in computers, and so I went into Cambridge. I went into Harvard. Harvard had a computer program, but one of the first computer programs, even though Penn was making all kinds of other claims, okay. And I was there until 1958 or something like that.
at Harvard.
After Harvard, yeah.
You finished at Carnegie, your master's,
Yeah.
and then you got into Harvard
Into
for your,
Harvard,
for your
and I was
PhD.
at Harvard, PhD, yes.
When did you get married?
I got married while I was going to Harvard, about a year before. I got my degree in 55, I got married in 54, something like this.
All right, then you went to Harvard. How long were you at Harvard for?
For about 3 years. 3 years. I was lucky. You had to come up with a dissertation of a topic, invent something, and I hit on something. And so it didn't take so long.
What was your doctorate in?
Doctor was in engineering computers devices. This is a computer. They needed some sort of a solid state devices to build computers, and not, the original UNIVAC was electronic tube, So I came up with something that I don't think it's eventually stood the competition, but I do have I do have a number of patents, that's one of them. So then I wanted to build computers, okay? And it's very funny because I didn't really know that much. But I got a job at a company called Univac, which was they really built the first commercial computer. That's how I got involved in Penn, University of Pennsylvania. But anyhow, I was in charge, not knowing too much, but I certainly had enough chutzpah. I was in charge of building a very large first transistorized computer for the Livermore Atomic Energy Commission around San Francisco, you know. They had an atomic research center there. And after doing that, they came to me. There were a lot of people from Penn around because Penn had built this first BINEC computer. So the dean came to me and made me an offer, okay, to come in on a 10-year track. And I accepted it even though it was a salary reduction. And that's the story.
So you stayed then in academia?
I stayed in academia. I had a consulting company too.
What about Israel? Did you go back at all to spend time there?
I've been in Israel for 3 sabbaticals. First time I came in there, they didn't, you know, computers are something very strange. There was nobody to talk to. But I have been, the first place I went to visit my parents reasonably, depending on their health. But in the end, I probably was every 6 weeks in Israel. I've organized some conferences in Israel. So that was probably a mistake too, because they did wonderful things. But I was on sabbatical at what? I was at the Weizmann Institute, I was at Tel Aviv University, at the Technion, each one of them, so I have a theory that, okay, that Israel is going to be a Jewish state, having people from the Jewry all over the world participate from wherever they are, being part of the Israeli community. So I don't feel bad about it. I feel that there are going to be Jews all over the world, and they will still belong to the Jewish state, whether partially or more, whether living there or not. So this is my prediction of the future, okay?
I'll go back for a minute. Do you remember where you were on November 29th, 1947? Do you remember when the partition plan vote took place?
Yes, I was in Tel Aviv.
You're in Tel Aviv?
Yes.
Where, would you remember?
Yeah, I was in Kikar Magen David, the very center. They were dancing there.
How did you feel at that time? Do you remember what you felt?
I don't think we really, you know, in years. I got to see Herzl's book, Alt Neuland. I think it's amazing that in the year 1900, he really predicted everything that happened. But at that time, we were just looking beyond our nose. We weren't really. We just wanted to escape all the Arab countries. I mean, it was just unbelievable having 5 Arab countries well equipped going against the states that didn't have a government the day before, but didn't have weapons and survived it. It's just showing you don't know what is a real thing. At any time, you think balance of forces may be completely different.
How did your brother being killed by the British impact you or your family?
I think it impacted my mother terribly. That was her second death, very close to her father. Was very close to her father, and then ours. So they just lived on. I don't think they came to visit me several times. In
United
the United States, yeah. So we kept in close touch all these years.
Do you think it had an impact on you, on the decisions that you made?
I became very sort of trying to think what I can do to revenge it or something like this, had feelings like this. I went to the Palmach because of that. I figured I had to do something. Okay.
Anything else that about Israel's founding, about other activities, Aliyah Bet, anything from that time that you could remember, you want to share, you want to?
I think the things that impacted me was in I went to Russia several times, supposedly on academic reasons, but mostly, there were visiting the Jewry there. And I managed to connect with a branch of the family from my grandmother from Berdyshev. They moved as a group. They moved to Moscow in the years and lived in like a close religious group. It's just unbelievable, amazing. So I helped some of them get out. One of the granddaughter, which is my second cousin, is now a nobility in England. She moved to England and she became an engineer at London University. So now she's the Lady Paulina Beifel.
You went to Russia as part of with Aryeh Kroll, with one of those, somebody recruited people from the States to go travel and bring things to.
Yeah, there was a recruiting around my synagogue. There were several people. We went. I went there, some sort of excuse academic if I could, but then I went there. Chabad would give me books, and then I would go also. There was an organization that sent scientists to see scientists that were dismissed in Russia. So there were a number of organizations that went.
This is while you were living in Philadelphia?
Hmm?
This is when you were living in Philadelphia?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I hope you...
Very interesting. Thank you very much.
I hope you... Here, let me show you.
Yeah, maybe we'll take a picture.
Like that. That's perfect.
very interesting.
Very interesting.
The book is very interesting, I'm saying.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
Okay, I guess I went through it and I felt okay, so.
I had